Hello and welcome to today's episode of Let's Talk Loyalty and Loyalty TV. As many of you now know, we're 4 years old and we started releasing our Thursday interviews on both video format on our Loyalty TV website as well as in audio format, as we always have done on the letstalkloyalty.com podcast channel. So whether you're listening or watching right now, we'd love to ask for your support and make sure to watch and share our videos on www.loyalty.tv. Now today's guest joins from a unique and highly inspirational brand, focused on 4 pillars or values that guide everything that they do. REI, or Recreational Equipment Incorporated, is a US-based cooperative, which means it's essentially owned and operated by its 24 million members. My guest is Clay Walton House, the Divisional Vice President of Membership for REI, who explains the incredible meaning this brings to the whole business, along with a whole new level of meaning to the word loyalty. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Clay Walton House from REI. So, Clay, welcome to Let's Talk Loyalty and Loyalty TV.
Thank you, Paula. Happy to be here.
Great. I hope you're impressed with the color that I'm wearing, Clay. I was trying to decide what color might be appropriate for an outdoor specialist company like you guys. And so there we are. We're going with the green.
Green is our color, as you probably have learned if you spent any time on our website. So
I sure have,
very
absolutely.
fitting.
Thank you, Clay. Great. Listen, it's an absolutely inspiring story that we're going to share with our audience today, and very different, I think, to what we typically talk about with, loyalty marketing professionals, when we're typically talking about things like currencies and promotions and discounts and all that kind of stuff. But this is literally loyalty as an ethos, if I might put it that way. So I'm dying to get into exploring all about the history and the story of what you're doing. But as you know, we always start this conversation trying to understand our favorite loyalty programs. So please kick us off. Tell me, Clay, what is your favorite loyalty program at the moment?
Well, this is always such a tough question, especially with how quickly the space is changing, as I'm sure many of your listeners know very, very well firsthand.
Yeah.
I will have to say Nike, as someone who has worked in the space for quite a while and really admires what they've done specifically in terms of integrating membership across a number of different experiential assets they've built for members, their app ecosystem, the way that they've integrated content and community, the way that they use that as a platform for a lot of societal issues, to bring interesting content and inspiration to their members. I really think that they represent one of the more modern and one of the more advanced applications of membership in a omni-channel retail model that also has a partner distribution network, which is, of course, an interesting challenge that many retailers face.
Yeah. And I think what I feel about particularly the Nike model, which is exactly what I feel like with you guys, is it almost feels like there's a higher purpose for the actual program and for the membership. It doesn't feel like it's just designed to get me to buy more kit. Like there's actually, like they want to change the physical behavior, which I know is absolutely the ethos of REI as well. So I can see you nodding away there, Clay. So we are going to have an amazing conversation. And please God, if Nike's watching or listening, we're dying to get them on the show as well. So open invitation to Nike. So thank you for that. And you did reference, of course, you've been in the industry quite a while, Clay. You have an extraordinary career and background. So do kick us off with telling us exactly how did you get into the loyalty industry? I think you fell in love with it like lots of us did. So tell us, how did all of that happen?
I did, but it was somewhat happenstance. So I actually started my career in professional sports. It was a passion play for me. I've always been a big soccer player and a soccer fan. So I actually started my career in sales and marketing, working for the local Pacific Northwest Seattle-based team called the Seattle Sounders.
Okay.
And then moved into the consulting space. And so relatively early on, that consulting work was largely customer strategy, insights, research, analytics, and marketing experience related projects.
Yeah.
And I just stumbled in to the loyalty space, really. I had a chance to work on a couple of very interesting programs, one at Expedia and one at T-Mobile. Very different industries.
Totally.
But really had a chance to kind of delve into, the mechanics of loyalty programs, behavior change. And I think what really appealed to me was this idea of, building more value into a brand's offering and inspiring loyalty in return.
Yeah.
And I felt that at that time in the market, there was a lot of what I would have called stale, tired, fairly boring rewards models, loyalty models in the market that hadn't really changed a lot, for a decade or more. And lucky for me, being a consultant, being an external party, it really gave me an opportunity to maybe gently poke and prod at those models and say, hey, there's a better way of doing this. There's a more holistic way of orienting toward adding value for members and driving behavior change and emotional loyalty and response. And so spent about 10, 15 years growing a consulting practice that grew from being focused purely on strategy and design work in the loyalty space to really, at the end, building out end-to-end solutions for brands across all industries, from strategy and design through building mobile app experiences, building web experiences, and then even helping manage the programs. And all of that led me to joining REI, which was really just a beautiful right place, right time. I had a long-standing relationship with the brand, knew REI very well, and had always aspired to potentially work there someday. And it just so happened that at the right moment in my career, a role came along that was in the membership team. And here I am.
Incredible. And forgive us, there's a lot of us around the world, Clay, that mightn't have been familiar with the REI brand, pardon me. So maybe just explain, of course, the acronym first and foremost, the incredible heritage, and of course, the entire model, because I think that's something that is particularly unique to REI. So maybe just introduce the business to us before we get into the membership side.
Absolutely. I mean, this is one of the primary reasons that I had an interest in joining the brand. So REI stands for Recreational Equipment Incorporated.
Okay.
But what is so interesting about who we are, and functionally, I should just first say that, we are a omni-channel retailer.
Okay.
So we operate in the US only. We have 181 stores.
Okay.
And we're about a $4 billion retail company.
Wow.
But what is fascinating about REI is that we are a consumer cooperative.
Yeah.
And so since 1938, we have been a member-based business.
Yeah.
And I'll share a little bit of the origin story here in a minute, but what made this project for me so inspiring and such a fun opportunity to be part of is that unlike most organizations where a loyalty program is something born out of a marketing or a digital organization to, drive a stickier business model, at a cooperative, membership is literally written into our bylaws. It is legally part of who we are.
Yeah.
Members have rights that are legally enforceable. And it's a very different philosophy. And it really imbues who we are as an organization, how we think about our mission.
Yeah.
And I'll talk more later about our quadruple bottom line. But the first part of that is our members.
Yeah.
And so to me, that was a really fascinating, nuanced difference and exciting opportunity to work, at an organization where membership is really deeply ingrained in who we are.
Yeah.
But also an opportunity to modernize mechanics and drive innovation and growth through a membership model. So that's a little bit about what makes a co-op unique as it relates to membership. I think what is equally inspiring and perhaps more inspiring is the origin story of the co-op.
Okay.
So in 1938, essentially what happened was there was a local outdoors community called the Mountaineers. It still exists.
Okay.
Great organization, one of the biggest outdoor kind of learning organizations in the US and the world, really.
Okay.
And the Mountaineers at the time was all about pretty classic outdoor sports, specifically alpinism. So a lot of people in the 1920s and the 1930s were climbing local mountains.
Nice.
And it was somewhat elitist. And
Okay.
to be part of that club,
Yeah.
you really had to kind of be part of that community already, and you had to meet a certain threshold. And the founders of the co-op really felt that that was not a very fair and egalitarian model. And so Lloyd and Mary Anderson, a husband and wife couple, started the co-op really to improve access to the outdoors, and felt that a cooperative model that was member-based was the best way to do that, where members had a voice in what the co-op would provide to them, what decisions the co-op would make, and how the co-op would provide value to them in terms of their goals of getting outdoors. And so that was really the birth of the organization. It was really about, more equal access to the outdoors. And that really is a legacy that we still live into today, even though the business and our work has evolved, of course, dramatically since 1938.
And thank goodness for that, Clay. I love that origin story. I can certainly say, as someone who has dabbled in the outdoors, when you start initially, or at least for me, it felt very intimidating because, at the end of the day, nature and mountains or oceans, I know different people are attracted by different types of outdoors, but I didn't have either the equipment or the knowledge or the confidence just to head out the front door. So there was, for me, a really important need to kind of connect with people. And the way I got into it was, not a million miles away, I guess, in terms of what the co-op has done. But for me, it was like, find a challenge, climb this mountain or that mountain. And I did climb quite a few mountains. But the sense of getting together and going outdoors, it really took my breath away, actually, in terms of the connections you build with people when you get out of the day-to-day indoor environment.
Paula, I think in your own words, you just masterfully described our mission. So, that is 100% exactly what we are about. And I think you hit on, some really powerful truths there that we have come to recognize and adopt into our own work over the last, I'd say, maybe 2 decades, which is really just recognizing that the outdoor industry of the past really served a pretty narrow audience and really was a very male-oriented, very performance-oriented industry. And the co-op has really seen our work and our mission evolve in recognition of that fact, and really orienting to the outdoors differently in terms of helping to solve accessibility and welcome, inclusion. And so that's a huge part of how we orient toward our work today. And a big part of the way that we think about membership, as well as, unlocking, enabling, inspiring, members of all types to get outdoors or get outside, whatever that might mean to them, whether it's a walk in the local park, a local bike ride to work, or climbing that mountain, backcountry skiing, rock climbing, whatever it might be. But really trying to make that more open, more accessible. So I think you described that beautifully. Thank you.
Oh, I'm very glad, Clay. Absolutely. It's something I do feel, I think, very passionate about. And one of the kind of insights, I think, that has resonated with me over the years as I experimented with all these different types of things, I remember when, for example, triathlons became like this crazy, again, quite elitist outdoor activity in Ireland. But somebody explained it was actually in many ways connected with the psychology of the economy. Because when people feel out of control, perhaps with their career, opportunities, we all remember all of the big cycles we've been through if we've been around long enough. But actually to get outdoors gives you something else to focus on. So the triathlons were the most visible, but again, people like me found other ways to go and again, connect with people, find different ways to be healthier. And given that it's the depth of summer here in the UAE, I will confess that I'm not very good at getting outdoors, but you've inspired me, as has a lot of your content actually, to make a renewed commitment to that. So I will probably talk to you about that again offline, Clay, because definitely very inspiring. So Bring us up to date then in terms of the membership numbers. I know it's been unbelievable growth. So tell us the scale of where the membership is for REI here in 2023.
Yeah, we are right around 24 million members at this point.
Wow. Yeah.
So we have been a growing member community for many, many years now, and it's been quite a story. And of course, getting to that scale, being that large, means that we struggle with and see a lot of the same opportunities and challenges that many other large retail-based businesses do in the for-profit retail space, right?
Course.
And so that's definitely an interesting part of our work is navigating the duality of being a $4 billion retailer who is also a consumer cooperative, the largest consumer cooperative in the U.S. So that's a very interesting dynamic for us culturally.
I can imagine, absolutely. And I don't know anything about cooperatives around the world, but I wouldn't be surprised if you were one of the biggest in the world as well. So plenty of both opportunities and challenges, I can imagine, as you balance all of these different priorities along the way. So 24 million people. And at the risk of being rude, I think it's a counterintuitive model in terms of how you get people to become members. So tell us exactly how the model works, because in some ways it makes no sense, and I know that's outrageous, but in many ways it's clearly working. So tell us about the membership model and how people become members and why.
That's a great question, and I will try to avoid getting too wonky or too detailed on the mechanics of a cooperative business model. But what I will say is that being a cooperative does afford us some flexibility in how we choose to operate. Because as opposed to being publicly traded, or shareholder owned in terms of a publicly traded company, we're not beholden to increasing a stock price. We're not beholden to private, venture-backed capital. So really, we exist to serve our members. And so we talk about our quadruple bottom line that I referenced earlier, which is really serving our members, serving our employees. Obviously, the business would be the third part of that quadruple bottom line, and then society. What is the impact we are having on society? Are we a change agent for good in the world? Are we helping improve the quality of lives lived in the world, or are we somehow degrading that? And so to get back to your question, the membership model is very unique. It is not a recurring membership fee. It is not a subscription. You pay once, $30, to become a lifetime member. That's it. $30 once, and you're a member for your life. And so it is an incredibly good deal if you're talking about it through the lens of what does those $30 get you. You can easily get that money back very quickly if you just take advantage of your benefits at the co-op. And I'm happy to talk more about that in terms of how we've been evolving the benefits for members. But simply put, our business model is not necessarily to, try to extract all the monetary value we can from our members. In fact, it's the inverse. It is to try to give as much value as we can to members. And we run a pretty thin business model because of that. We give a lot of our dollars back to members in the form of reward dollars. We give a lot of our dollars back to nonprofit partners and community partners in the communities that we serve as part of our impact on society. And of course, we reinvest large amounts of those dollars as well back into the business to stay sustainable and stay relevant in this modern retail environment that we operate in. But that does mean that we have been very keen to keep membership accessible to all. And that's a big part of why the one-time fee, as you're asking.
And I even, of course, looked on the website as well, Clay, and after charging the $30 for the lifetime membership, as you said, it's not recurring, you then immediately give it back as a $30 gift card.
Yes, that's something that we've been testing for a while. And what we have found, as I think many organizations do, is that it's really important to bring people back early in their experience of being members. And so that's a way that we've been able to return value very quickly to members, bring them back, and get them engaged. Because of course our goal is not simply to sell the membership. Our goal is to create that new member relationship, but then really to earn the loyalty to serve them, in all of their outdoor needs as much as we can, as it aligns to our business. And so it's really about bringing them back early, helping unlock that value for them early as members.
Thank you for clarifying, Clay, because I could imagine, maybe somebody coming into the organization and just going, why don't we just eliminate the membership fee? Like, again, there could be an argument that, let's just do away with all of that. But to me, there probably is some very clever psychology around the fact that somebody does invest, as you said, an affordable amount in order to become part of this incredible community. So even if you are giving it back and they have a transactional mindset around it, I can automatically feel that if I have kind of paid for something, I do feel like I've become a member in a way of something that's more meaningful. Is that fair to say?
Right. It is absolutely fair to say. And we find that a lot of our work, specifically focused on member acquisition, welcoming new members to the co-op, really is about understanding that psychology in terms of the perceived value, the relationship to that $30 fee.
Yeah.
And for whom is that a relatively easy, choice to make, and for whom is it not?
Yeah.
And that's certainly something that we talk about quite a bit.
I can imagine. And fair play, because of course I hadn't thought about, for me, $30 is something, of course, I can afford if I so choose. But there are plenty of people who can't. And going back to your bylaws and the integrity of the intention of your founders, of course, if somebody wants to head outdoors, they should be able to do that in a very accessible manner. So absolutely wonderful to hear all of that. So you've got your quadruple bottom line, you've got your 24 million members. Tell us some of the other cool stuff you've been doing in the past couple of years, because I think there's a fair bit of innovation going on to digitalize and transform the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. We were very excited to make, I would say, one of the more significant upgrades to membership benefits that we've made in decades, just about a year and a half ago now. So last March, released some new benefits for members. I'll start with one that maybe I'm most excited about, which is what we call our member resupply, which is our used gear ecosystem for members.
Yeah.
So at the co-op, of course, sustainability, and fighting the good fight on climate change is a big part of what we are all about. And so we have a major co-op priority to reduce our own product-driven carbon footprint over the next decade.
Okay.
And a big part of that is really increasing the circular economy within the co-op. And that means enabling members to trade in their used gear, earn credit, to then upgrade to a new product that they may need, and allowing another member to then buy that same used gear. So for us, this is really exciting. We have a long history of running what we used to call garage sales, which many members are, they will remember it very well. It was very popular with our members, but they were one-off events where we would have used gear sales. And what we've done is we've really made that an omni-channel marketplace now, where members can trade in that gear online, they can trade it in store, they can buy used gear online, they can buy used gear in the store, and it's always available. And so for us, that was a really big step forward in terms of both our sustainability priorities, but also adding value for members in a new and unique way that can also lower barriers to getting outside. In the sense that, you can find a lot of great, gently used gear at a significantly lower price. And so that does lower the barrier for some folks, and that's a very material thing. So that for me was a really exciting step forward, and I think very unique in the market when you look at the scale and breadth of what we offer from a used gear standpoint. Some other things that were really exciting, we have shops in our stores. And so these are outdoor shops that service bikes, service skis, service snowboards. And we provide significant member pricing discounts for members on those services. And so that's another way that we can help people get outdoors that is, above and beyond just selling a product. So we have increased the discount that members receive which also includes some free services. If members have a flat tire on their bike, they can just bring it into the local shop and we will repair it for no charge.
Wow.
If members need to get their skis or snowboards waxed, they can bring it into the shop and we will give them a free hot wax on the skis or snowboards.
Wow.
And so we do a lot, and that was some new improvements, enhancements that we made for members recently as well.
Yeah.
And then I think the third thing I'd highlight is one that you've definitely, I'm sure, seen in industry across other examples of retailers and brands. But we did launch what we call Member Collection, which is a collection of member-only products. And a lot of those are both from really cool partner brands that we work with, like the North Face or Cotopaxi. But it also includes our own in-house Co-op brand product, which really allows us to do some very exciting things like get members involved in the product design process and ensure that their feedback is improving what we're making for them.
Yeah.
And then to use that, what we call member-made process to influence the product that then fulfills the member collection. And so that's a really exciting area for us as well.
My goodness. I can see you came in determined to make an impact, Clay, with all of that consulting background and all those dull loyalty programs out there. You're like, okay, this is going to be different. It's going to be fun.
That's right. That was definitely a big part of the appeal. Right.
For sure. Yeah. And again, hugely reassuring, because what I will also confess is I did change, of course, sports and different outdoor activities as I, literally just experimented, I guess. But if there was a technical issue like a puncture on the bike, I honestly couldn't deal with it. I was often lucky enough to have a cycling club around perhaps that would support me, but otherwise I'm just like, oh God, this is too complicated. So
exactly. And that's a huge barrier, to your earlier comments, in terms of how the outdoors can be very intimidating to people and can really ultimately become a barrier to getting outside and exploring and discovering new ways of being yourself outdoors. And so you're right. Our shop services are a key part of how we try to remove some of those functional barriers to, owning a bike or getting outdoors on a bike or on skis or snowboards. Amazing.
With all of those cool things, Clay, we've yet to talk about my favorite thing that you do, and nobody will be surprised, I guess, to hear that the fact that REI has such extraordinary content on both YouTube, of course, and I'm sure all of your channels has absolutely blown us away as a team as we were preparing for this conversation. The number I saw on YouTube is that you actually have over 136 million views of your content. It's off the charts. So to me, I have believed in this idea for a long time that content is a driver of loyalty, not in a traditional way that any points program would do or any coupons. But tell us about, I suppose, why did REI realize how powerful content could be, given that actually ultimately you want people away from their screens, away from YouTube and out in the real world? So what's the role of the content piece and why do you invest in it so heavily?
It's a great question, and I will just say that I too share that belief. I think for the co-op, for REI, there are two maybe primary functions that content plays in terms of the needs that we are meeting for our members or for our future members. And one of those needs is functional. So we really focus a lot and have a long history of expertise at the co-op. And that, it's not just about having the product on the shelf. It's about actually being able to help a member choose the right product for them. And being able to advise on the nuances, the technical details, and remove some of those barriers that you were talking about earlier. And so one of the primary roles content plays and meeting those needs is really around expertise. How can we share knowledge? How can we make that accessible? How can we help people on their journey, if they're new to something, to become more comfortable and to spend more time outside. The second functional role it plays is really inspiration.
Yeah.
So we know that getting outdoors for many people is a process of kind of dreaming, envisioning yourself out there and doing this thing.
Yeah.
And that there is this cycle that people go through, that often starts with some kind of inspiration, whether you want to change something about yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to just get in better physical shape, or maybe you're stressed and you want to get outdoors for some peace and some renewal.
Yeah.
We really find that content plays a key role in helping people immerse in that state of inspiration and actually build up the energy to then go do the thing, right? Where you actually get the payoff physically, emotionally of being outdoors.
Yeah.
And so those, at a very simplistic level, those are the two functional needs that we see content meeting: expertise and inspiration.
Yeah.
And for us, it's really a way to not only serve members, but also to, increase our reach, right? And become known to people who are not yet members today. And so to your point, I do also believe that content drives loyalty. It's a manifestation of who we are. It's a way for us to show up in accordance with our values, to represent who we are, to bring people back when they may not need, to buy something, but still want to get value from being part of the brand, being part of the co-op, or at least, extracting the value that they can in the form of expertise and inspiration.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that, Clay. I think I said to you the last time we met, like, the purpose of this show is education and inspiration. So one thing that I can say with joy that we've learned from REI today is that content is a lever of loyalty. And again, it's one I'm, probably the most passionate about, because I feel it's underappreciated. And certainly the level and the scale of what you guys have done, I suppose, is one piece, but the actual quality of the content is certainly, to me, Netflix worthy. Like, I can absolutely imagine, I've seen some of the snowboarders and stunts and, amazingly inspiring people on your YouTube channel, where, people I would love to meet, of course. And I think you're absolutely right. There is something about, I suppose, just having a model of what maybe we want to become, what we might want to experiment with, what we want to achieve as human beings, that we can start to visualize using the blessings of the internet, because we all know it can be a crazy place sometime, but you guys seem to be using it super well, and very much part of your loyalty strategy. And even the number, actually, I saw also in terms of your new members, like 1.2 million new members alone joined in 2022. So clearly everything's working.
I'd say so. I mean, we have ambitious goals for, impacting the world in a healthy way and engaging our members in that process. So reaching and increasing the diversity of our member base is really a key goal for us. And so, yes, we're very excited about welcoming, 1.2, 1.3 new members a year.
Yeah.
And that's been a key part of our long-term ambition in terms of the impact we can have.
Incredible. Well, listen, Clay, I hope we can keep the conversation going. I feel like this is the first conversation of many. I think you're one of our very first guests that's going out in both audio and video format. So really want to thank you for being part of this journey with us, because it has been just a roller coaster, and just you guys have been incredibly patient to join us and be part of, I suppose, our growth and development. And again, inspiring us with your own stories. So thank you for all of that. I think that's all the questions I have from my side, Clay. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention before we wrap up?
No, I don't think so, Paula. I've really enjoyed the conversation, and appreciate your expertise and the questions that you ask. And it's a very fun way to have a meaningful dialogue. So thank you for having me.
No problem at all. Clay Walton House, Divisional Vice President of Membership for REI. Thank you so much from Let's Talk Loyalty and Loyalty TV.
Thank you, Paula.